Light flooded the world. After 3 years of absolute darkness, the sudden rush of colors and shapes sent me stumbling backward against the hospital wall. My hands flew to my face, trembling fingers pressing against eyelids that had forgotten how to process the miracle of sight. Dr. Martinez's voice was muffled, as if I were underwater, distant and subdued. As my brain struggled to make sense of the overwhelming visual information flooding my consciousness. Tracy, can you hear me? How many fingers am I holding up? I blinked rapidly, tears streaming down my cheeks as the blurry outline of his hand slowly sharpened into clear focus. 3 fingers. 3 incredible, real fingers that I could actually see. 3, I whispered, my voice cracking with disbelief. I can see 3 fingers. The experimental surgery had been a desperate last resort. When the drunk driver slammed into my car that rainy October night, the doctors said the optic nerve damage was irreversible. They were mistaken. After months of cutting-edge treatment and countless prayers, my vision returned, a true miracle. But as I sat in the passenger seat of Dr. Martinez's car, watching familiar streets blur past the window, an unexplained sense of dread settled deep inside me. Something felt wrong. The shadows seemed too elongated, the colors too vivid, as if the world itself had subtly changed during my time in the dark. Are you certain you don't want me to call Kenneth? Dr. Martinez asked for the 3rd time as
he pulled into my driveway. This is incredible news.
He should be here to celebrate with you. I shook my head, managing a strained smile. He's at work. I want to surprise him when he gets home tonight. This will be the best gift I could ever give him. The lie felt foul in my mouth, but I couldn't explain the increasing anxiety that urged me to sneak inside without being seen. Kenneth thought I was still at the hospital for routine tests. He had no idea that today would change everything. As Dr. Martinez drove away, I stood on my front porch, my hand trembling as I held the key. The house looked exactly as I remembered it, yet after 3 years of navigating it solely by touch and memory, it felt alien. The red brick facade, the white shutters, the garden where I'd planted roses before the accident. Everything was painfully familiar, yet oddly detached. I turned the key and stepped inside, my heart pounding fiercely against my chest. The silence felt oppressive, broken only by the soft tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Something was different. The air felt heavy, charged with an unfamiliar tension. A heaviness that made my newly gained sight feel like a curse, not a gift. That's when I heard it. A gentle laugh drifted from upstairs, a woman's laugh, clearly not my own. My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. Serena, our daughter's nanny. The sweet, caring young woman who had become vital to our family since my accident. The woman Kenneth praised constantly for her dedication, her kindness, her willingness to help with everything I could no longer do. Then another sound, deeper, masculine, painfully familiar, Kenneth's voice, hushed and intimate in a way I hadn't heard in months. My legs almost buckled as the awful truth hit me. I clutched the banister, my knuckles stark white against the dark wood as the sounds from above painted a picture I desperately wished I hadn't seen. But now I could see every single thing. And what I was about to witness would destroy my world more thoroughly than any car crash ever could. I forced myself to climb the stairs. Each step felt like walking toward my own demise. My restored vision seemed to grow sharper with each heartbeat. Noticing details I'd long forgotten, the way afternoon sunlight slanted through the hallway window, the family photos lining the wall, the tiny scuff on the hardwood where Kimberly's toy truck had fallen last month. The sounds grew clearer as I approached our bedroom. My bedroom, the room where I'd spent countless nights lying awake, wondering why Kenneth seemed so distant, so eager to work late, so quick to encourage Serena to stay overnight when Kimberly had nightmares. The door was slightly open. Through the gap I could see movement. Shadows moved rhythmically against the wall, making my stomach churn. I pressed myself against the hallway wall, my heart hammering so loud. We have to be more careful. Serena's voice was breathless, tinged with guilt. What if Tracy comes home early? Kenneth's laugh was cold, dismissive. Tracy, she can barely find the bathroom alone. Besides, she's at the hospital until evening. We have hours. The casual callousness in his voice struck me hard. This was the man who had held my hand through countless doctor's appointments, who had sworn he would love me through anything, who had looked into my eyes on our wedding day and promised to cherish me in sickness and in health. I still feel terrible about this, Serena whispered. She trusts me completely. She thinks I'm her friend. You are helping her, Kenneth replied, his voice taking on that manipulative tone I was beginning to recognize. You're giving her the care she needs while I handle everything else. It's not our fault she can't be a real wife anymore. I bit down on my fist to keep from screaming. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. Not just Kenneth's infidelity, but the deliberate way they had both deceived me, using my blindness as a cover for their relationship. Through the crack in the door, I caught a glimpse of them together on the bed I'd shared with Kenneth for 8 years. Serena's dark hair fanned across my pillow, her young face flushed with desire. Kenneth's hands moved over her body with a tenderness he hadn't displayed towards me since before the accident. I should have burst in, screamed, thrown things, demanded answers. Instead, I found myself retreating slowly, my thoughts surprisingly clear. Perhaps it was shock, or maybe a deeper survival instinct, but I knew with absolute certainty that confronting them now would be a mistake. They believed I was blind. I'd let them continue to believe that. I tiptoed back downstairs, my movements silent and intentional. In the kitchen, I sat at the table where I'd eaten breakfast that morning, where Serena had cheerfully poured my coffee, likely counting the minutes until Kenneth returned after dropping Kimberly at school. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called Dr. Martinez. Tracy, is everything okay? You sound distressed. I forced my voice to stay even. I'm fine. I just wanted to ask ... When should I inform my family about the surgery's outcome? I'm concerned about overwhelming them. Well, there's no medical need to wait, but if you wish to process this privately first, that's entirely understandable. It's a significant life change. I'd prefer to wait a few days, maybe even a week. I want to be certain the improvement is lasting before I raise everyone's hopes. Certainly, just remember your follow-up appointments. And Tracy, this is a miracle. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. If only he knew the profound truth of his words. It was indeed a miracle, just not in the way anyone could have foreseen. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen and began to plan. For 3 years I had relied on others, trusting them as my eyes and ears. I had accepted their version of reality, unquestioningly grateful for their assistance, never suspecting my greatest vulnerability was being exploited. But now I could see, and I intended to use that gift to expose every falsehood, every act of betrayal, every hidden deception that had been concealed in the dark. Kenneth and Serena believed they were safe. They thought they had the perfect cover, a flawless victim who would never uncover their secret. They were about to discover how utterly mistaken they were. The front door closed precisely at 5:47 p.m., as it had every weekday for the last 3 years. Kenneth's keys clinked against the ceramic bowl by the entryway, followed by his familiar heavy steps down the hall. Tracy, I'm home. I sat in the living room, precisely where Serena had guided me an hour earlier, helping me to my favorite chair. She had been flustered coming downstairs, her hair slightly disheveled, her cheeks still red. She'd given some excuse about needing to pick up Kimberly from a playdate, then practically fled the house. I'm in here, I called back, keeping my voice carefully neutral. Kenneth appeared in the doorway, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw his face clearly. The sight almost shattered my calm. He looked older, more worn than I recalled. But there was something else, a smugness in his expression that made my skin prickle. This was the face of a man who thought he was pulling off a perfect deception. How was your day, sweetheart? He crossed the room and kissed my forehead, the same routine gesture he'd offered every day since my accident. Any word from Dr. Martinez about the test results? I almost had to admire his performance. The concern in his voice sounded authentic, even loving. If I hadn't witnessed him with Serena just hours prior, I might have fallen for it. Not yet, I lied smoothly. He said the full analysis might take a few days. Well, try not to get your hopes up too high. We've been let down before. The nonchalant way he crushed my supposed hopes made me want to strike him. Instead, I nodded sadly, playing the role of the resigned, helpless wife. You're right. I just can't help but dream sometimes, about seeing Kimberly's face, watching her grow up. Kenneth squeezed my shoulder, and I could practically feel his relief that I wasn't pressing for more details. I know, honey, but we have a good life, right? Serena helps with everything you need. Kimberly's happy and healthy, and we're managing fine. Managing just fine. As if my blindness was merely a minor household inconvenience to be dealt with, rather than a devastating loss that had redefined my entire existence. Speaking of Serena, I said carefully. She seemed a bit strange today. Distracted. I hope she's not getting sick. I watched Kenneth's face carefully, noticing the subtle tension around his eyes, the nearly imperceptible clench of his jaw. She seemed fine to me, he said quickly. Maybe she's just tired. She worked so hard taking care of you and Kimberly.
His emphasis on taking care of you was not lost on me.
In Kenneth's mind, I had transformed into a burden to be handled, not a wife to be cherished. Where is she now? Picking up Kimberly from Sarah's house. They should be back soon for dinner. I nodded, filing away this information. So their stories were coordinated. Serena's playdate excuse was legitimate, meaning their afternoon together had been planned. This wasn't a sudden lapse. It was a deliberate affair. Kenneth, I said softly, I know this hasn't been easy for you. The accident, my blindness, all the adjustments we've had to make. I want you to know how truly grateful I am for everything you've done. For a brief moment, a flicker of genuine emotion crossed his face. Guilt, perhaps, or merely discomfort at being thanked by his wife, while the scent of his lover still clung to him. You don't need to thank me, Tracy. We're married. That's what partners do. Still, I know it's been hard. If you ever need to talk about anything, or if something's bothering you, I hope you know you can tell me. I was offering him an opportunity, a chance to confess, to reveal even a fragment of the man I had loved. For a fleeting moment, I thought he might seize it. His mouth opened slightly, and I saw what might have been remorse in his eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by that same feigned concern. The only thing bothering me is seeing you struggle with your blindness, he said. But we're managing, right? We have help, we have each other, and that's what truly matters. The moment passed, and I knew with agonizing certainty that Kenneth was no longer mine. The man I'd married, the father of my daughter, had been replaced by someone who could look me in the eye and lie without hesitation. But I was no longer the helpless victim he believed me to be. I could see now, not only with my eyes but with a clarity somehow sharpened by 3 years of darkness. I saw the truth of my situation, the profound depth of their betrayal, and most importantly, I saw exactly what I had to do. The front door opened again, and Kimberly's cheerful voice filled the house. Mommy, I'm home. My heart tightened as my 6-year-old daughter ran in. Her blonde curls bouncing, her face glowing with the pure joy only children possess. Behind her, Serena appeared, once again looking composed and professional. How was your playdate, sweetheart? I asked, opening my arms for Kimberly's hug. It was so fun. Sarah has a new puppy, and we taught him tricks, and we made cookies. Oh, little one, Serena laughed, a sound that made my stomach churn. Let your mommy breathe. I hugged Kimberly tighter, inhaling her familiar scent of strawberry shampoo and playground dust. This innocent child had no idea that the 2 adults she trusted most were living a lie that threatened to shatter her family. Thank you for picking her up, Serena, Kenneth said, and I caught the significant look they exchanged. I hope it wasn't too much trouble. No trouble at all, Serena replied smoothly. I'm happy to help in any way I can. As I sat there, surrounded by my family, playing the part of the grateful, unsuspecting wife, I made a silent promise to my daughter and myself. I would not let this betrayal ruin Kimberly's world without facing consequences. Kenneth and Serena thought they held all the power, but they'd made one critical error. They had underestimated me. The game had just begun, and for the first time in 3 years, I saw all the players with perfect clarity. Over the next week, I became a student of deception, learning to move through my own home while feigning blindness. It was tougher than I'd expected. 3 years of careful touch-based movement clashed with my natural instinct to simply look. I had to remember to trail my hand along walls, to pause at doorways, to request help with tasks I could now easily do on my own, but the effort was worthwhile. My supposed blindness had become the ideal cover for observation. I discovered that Kenneth and Serena had developed an intricate system of communication. Significant glances across the dinner table, subtle touches when they thought I wasn't watching, text messages exchanged while sitting in the same room. They had transformed my disability into their shield, wielding it with practiced ease. "Tracy, I'm heading out to run some errands," Serena announced on Friday morning after Kenneth had left for work and Kimberly was at school. "Will you be okay for a few hours?" I was sitting in the kitchen, ostensibly listening to an audiobook, while drinking coffee. In reality, I was observing her reflection in the window, noting how often she checked her phone. "Of course," I said. "Take your time." "I'll probably just rest." The gesture itself felt like a betrayal. She gathered her purse. I waited until I heard her car pull out of the driveway before moving to the window. Instead of turning towards town, she drove in the direction of Kenneth's office. An hour later, I called Kenneth's work number using the house telephone. Kenneth had shown me how to use it for emergencies. "Maximus and Associates, Jennifer speaking." "Hi, Jennifer. It's Tracy Maximus. Is Kenneth available?" "Oh, hello, Mrs. Maximus. I'm sorry, Mr. Maximus stepped out for a long lunch meeting. He should be back around 3. Can I take a message?" "A long lunch meeting." I glanced at the clock. 11:30 a.m. indeed, quite a long lunch. "No message," I said. "I'll try him later." I hung up and leaned back in my chair, the pieces of the puzzle falling into place. This wasn't just an affair. It was a full-fledged relationship unfolding right under my nose. They had lunch dates, synchronized schedules, and were comfortable enough to take risks that should have terrified them. That afternoon, I decided to probe the limits of their deception. "Serena," I said when she returned, looking slightly disheveled. Despite her errands, I've been thinking about redecorating Kimberly's room. Perhaps we could go shopping this weekend, look at new bedding. I watched her face closely, observing the flicker of panic in her eyes. "Oh, that sounds wonderful. But this weekend might be tricky. I have some family commitments." "Of course. What about next weekend?" "Actually," she said, fidgeting with her car keys, "I should probably tell you I might need to cut back my hours soon. I've been offered another role that better suits my long-term goals." The lie left her tongue so effortlessly I almost admired her skill, but I saw the truth in her eyes. She was planning to leave. The question was, would she take Kenneth with her? "Oh no," I said, allowing genuine distress to color my voice. "Serena, you're like family to us. I don't know what we'd do without you." The guilt that flashed across her face was almost satisfying. "Almost? It's not definite yet," she said quickly. "I'm still considering it." That evening I lay in bed, listening to Kenneth's breathing, waiting for him to fall asleep. When his breathing finally deepened into the rhythm of sleep, I carefully slid out of bed and made my way to his study. Moving silently through the darkened house felt surreal. For 3 years, darkness had been my constant companion. Now I chose to embrace it as an ally. I found Kenneth's laptop on his desk and carefully opened it. The screen's glow seemed blindingly bright in the dark. His password was Kimberly's birthday, predictably pathetic. As the desktop loaded, I felt a moment's hesitation. Once I looked, there would be no returning to the comfortable lies I'd been living. I clicked on his email. The first few messages were work-related dull correspondence about cases and client meetings. Then I found what I was searching for. An email thread between Kenneth and Serena that made my blood run cold. From Kenneth Maximus to Serena Francisco. Subject: this weekend. Can't wait to have you all to myself. Tracy thinks you're visiting your sister. We'll have the entire weekend at the cabin while she's at her mother's with Kimberly. I feel terrible lying to her. She was so excited about Kimberly's first sleepover at Grandma's. She has no idea we Planned it so we could be together. Stop feeling guilty. You're giving her what she needs: stability, care, someone to depend on. What we have doesn't change that. Besides, it's not like she can ever be a real wife again. I had to grip the desk to keep from collapsing. The casual cruelty of that last line struck me like a physical blow. In Kenneth's mind, my blindness had rendered me less than human, unworthy of fidelity or honesty. I scrolled further back, finding months of correspondence that painted a picture of a relationship that had begun soon after my accident. Serena's initial resistance had gradually eroded under Kenneth's relentless pursuit, fueled by his constant refrain that I would never know and couldn't be harmed by what I couldn't see. But it was the most recent email that made my hands tremble with fury, from Serena Francisco to Kenneth Maximus. Subject: the plan. I've been thinking about what you said. Maybe you're right. Perhaps it would be better for everyone if Tracy were in a care facility. She'd receive professional help, and we could start fresh somewhere new. Kimberly would adjust. Children are resilient. From Kenneth Maximus to Serena Francisco. I've already looked into places. There's a facility upstate specializing in cases like hers. We could tell Tracy it's temporary, just until we figure things out. Once she's settled there, we can file for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences. I'll get custody of Kimberly. What judge would grant a child to a blind woman who can't care for herself? The room spun around me as the full extent of their betrayal became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't merely an affair. It was a conspiracy to steal my life, my daughter, my very identity. They'd planned to confine me to some institution while they played house with my child. I closed the laptop with trembling hands and returned to bed, where Kenneth slept peacefully beside me, likely dreaming of his new life with Serena, as I lay there in the darkness, listening to the breathing of the man plotting to destroy me. Something cold and hard crystallized in my chest. The next morning, I made a life-altering decision. While Kenneth was at work and Serena was taking Kimberly to her swimming lesson, I called my sister Rachel. Tracy, what a pleasant surprise. How are you feeling? Rachel lived 2 hours away, in the city, working as a private investigator. We had grown somewhat distant since my accident, not from a lack of love, but because my new limitations complicated visits, and Kenneth had subtly discouraged them. Rachel, I need to see you. Can you come over today? It's crucial. Of course. Is everything okay? You sound odd. I can't explain over the phone. Just ... you come. And Rachel, don't tell anyone you're coming. Not Kenneth, not anyone. There was a pause. Rachel had always been perceptive, and I could practically hear her investigator instincts activating. I'll be there in 2 hours. When Rachel arrived, I was waiting by the front door. The moment I opened it and looked directly into her eyes, her face paled. Tracy, you can see me. Yes, I said simply. And I need your help. I led her into the living room and told her everything. The surgery, the recovery, what I'd witnessed, what I'd uncovered. Rachel listened without interruption, her expression growing graver with each revelation. Those bastards, she whispered when I finished. Tracy, we have to call the police, a lawyer, someone. No, I said firmly, not yet. If I reveal I can see now, they'll know I've been watching. They'll destroy evidence, alter their plans, perhaps even accelerate their timeline to have me committed. Rachel leaned forward, her eyes sharp with professional interest. What are you thinking? I'm thinking they've been playing a game where they believed they held all the cards, but they don't know the rules have changed. I want to collect enough evidence to utterly destroy them. Not just for the affair, but for their plan to take Kimberly and have me institutionalized. That's actually brilliant, Rachel said slowly. They'll never see it coming. I need your help. I need someone who understands proper evidence collection, someone who can help me document everything without them knowing. Rachel was already pulling out her phone. I have contacts people who can install surveillance equipment, forensic accountants who can trace financial records, lawyers specializing in these kinds of cases. Tracy, by the time we're finished with them, they won't know what hit them. For the first time in days, a genuine smile touched my face. There's something else. I want to make them believe they're winning. I want them to think their plan is working flawlessly right up until the moment it all collapses. You want to play the long game. Exactly. Let them dig their own graves. Rachel grinned, and I remembered why we'd been such a formidable team as children. I love it. What do you need me to do? Over the next hour, we developed a comprehensive plan. Rachel would install hidden cameras throughout the house, focusing on areas where Kenneth and Serena were likely to meet. She would also start investigating their financial records, searching for joint accounts or purchases that would prove the depth of their relationship. I'll also run background checks on both of them, Rachel said. If they're capable of this level of deception, there might be other things in their past we can use. What about the custody issue? I asked. Kenneth seems confident no judge would grant Kimberly to a blind mother. That's where he's wrong, Rachel said grimly. Disability discrimination in custody cases is illegal, and any decent lawyer would shred that argument. But we'll need to prove you're a capable mother and that Kenneth's motivations are purely selfish. I've been thinking about that too, I said. What if I could prove I'm not as helpless as they think? What if I could show I've been managing more than they realize? Rachel's eyes lit up. You mean document your actual capabilities versus what they believe you can do? Exactly. I want to show that their entire justification for this betrayal rests on lies they've told themselves. As we talked, I felt a sense of purpose I hadn't felt since before the accident. For 3 years, I had been a victim of the drunk driver, of my disability, of my own limitations. But now, for the very first time, I was taking control. There's one more thing, I said as Rachel prepared to leave. I want to give them enough rope to hang themselves. I'm going to start acting more dependent, more helpless. I want them to feel completely secure in their deception. That's risky, Rachel warned. If you push too hard, they might grow suspicious. I don't think so. They want to believe I'm helpless. It makes their betrayal easier to justify. I'm just going to give them exactly what they want to see. Rachel hugged me tightly before leaving. Tracy, I'm so proud of you. What they've done is unforgivable, but the way you're handling it, you're stronger than they could ever imagine. After she left, I sat in my living room and looked around at the home I had shared with Kenneth for 8 years. Soon, Serena would return with Kimberly, and the performance would restart. But now I wasn't merely surviving their deception. I was actively working to expose it. Kenneth and Serena believed they were the predators circling their helpless prey. They had no idea that the prey had not only regained her sight, but had also grown teeth. 2 weeks later, Rachel's surveillance equipment was installed, and I had perfected my act of increasing helplessness. I began asking for help with tasks I'd been handling independently, stumbling more often, expressing frustration with my limitations. Kenneth and Serena reacted exactly as I'd hoped, with thinly veiled relief and growing confidence. I'm worried about Tracy, I overheard Serena telling Kenneth one evening in the kitchen, thinking I was napping upstairs. She seems to be deteriorating. Yesterday, she couldn't even find the bathroom without help. Perhaps the stress of hoping for a cure is making her regress, Kenneth replied. Dr. Martinez said the test results would be back soon. When they confirm there's no improvement, maybe she accept her situation and stop fighting so hard. I had to bite my tongue to stop myself from laughing. If only they knew Dr. Martinez had been calling daily, concerned about my decision too. Delay sharing the good news with my family. Kenneth, Serena's voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe we should move forward with our plans sooner rather than later. She's becoming more dependent every day. It might be easier for her to transition to professional care now while she's already struggling. You might be right, Kenneth said, and I heard him move closer to her. I'll call that facility tomorrow, see if they have an opening. My blood ran cold, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was precisely the evidence I needed, concrete proof of their conspiracy to have me committed. The next morning I set the next phase of my plan in motion. Kenneth, I said over breakfast, my voice carefully modulated to sound defeated. I've been thinking about what you said last week, about accepting my limitations. He looked up from his coffee, and I saw the hope flicker in his eyes. What do you mean? Maybe you're right. Perhaps I've been fighting too hard against my blindness. It's not fair to you and Kimberly, having you take care of me when I can't even care for myself. Serena, who was preparing Kimberly's lunch, froze. I could feel her listening intently. Tracy, you don't need to. No, let me finish, I interrupted. I think maybe I need more help than you can give me at home. Professional help. The silence in the kitchen was deafening. I could practically hear Kenneth's heart pound with excitement. Are you saying? He began carefully. Saying maybe we should look into care facilities, places that specialize in helping people like me. I let my voice break slightly. I hate being such a burden on our family. Kenneth was around the table in seconds, pulling me into what felt like the first genuine hug he'd given me in months. But I could see over his shoulder to where Serena stood frozen by the counter, her face a mix of guilt and triumph. You're not a burden? Kenneth said, but his voice was thick with palpable relief. If that's truly what you think is best, we can look into options. But only if you're sure. I'm sure, I whispered. I just want what's best for Kimberly. She shouldn't have to grow up with a mother who can't even help with her homework or drive her to school. That afternoon, while Kimberly was at school, and Serena was supposedly running errands, but actually meeting Kenneth for another lunch, I called Rachel. They took the bait, I told her. Kenneth's already making calls about facilities. Perfect. I got some updates for you too. The financial investigation turned up some interesting information. Kenneth's been moving money into a separate account. Small amounts over the past months, but it totals about $30,000. Escape money, I said grimly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Also, I ran that background check on Serena. Tracy, she's done this before. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? 3 years ago, she worked for a family in Portland. Husband, wife, 2 kids. The wife had multiple sclerosis and was becoming increasingly dependent on care. Serena was their living caregiver, and the husband left his wife for Serena 7 months later. The wife ended up in a care facility, losing custody of her children, and Serena and the husband moved to California with the kids. I sank into my chair, the full extent of Serena's predatory behavior becoming clear. She's a professional home wrecker. Worse, she targets vulnerable families, gains their trust, then systematically destroys them. Tracy, I think she deliberately sought out your family because of your situation. The room spun around me as I processed this information. Serena hadn't just fallen into an affair with my husband. She had deliberately targeted us, likely from the moment she answered our ad for a caregiver. There's more, Rachel continued. I found communications between her and someone named Stephen Francisco, her brother. I think they've been discussing the Maximus job and something about a timeline for completion. She has an accomplice. It appears so. Tracy, this isn't just an affair or even a custody grab. This is organized fraud. They're likely planning to take Kenneth for everything he's worth before vanishing. I thought about Kenneth's relief when I suggested the care facility, his eagerness to proceed with their plans. He had no idea he wasn't Serena's partner in this scheme. He was just another mark. Rachel, I want to speed up our timeline. If Serena plans to disappear with Kenneth's money, we need to stop her before she can execute that plan. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's time to give them exactly what they want. Let them think they've won completely. And then, when they're celebrating their victory, we'll show them what real devastation looks like. That evening, I sat at the dinner table with my family, watching Kimberly chatter about her school day while Kenneth and Serena exchanged knowing glances over her head. My daughter had no idea that the 2 adults she trusted most were planning to rip her world apart. But I was going to ensure that didn't happen. Serena had made one critical miscalculation. She had underestimated the power of a mother's love and a woman's fury. The trap was set. Now all I had to do was wait for them to step into it. The call came on Monday morning, precisely 3 weeks. After I regained my sight, Dr. Martinez's voice sounded concerned as he spoke to Kenneth, who had answered the phone in the kitchen while I sat at the table, ostensibly reading a Braille book. I'm sorry, Mr. Maximus, but I truly need to speak with Tracy about her test results. It's been nearly a month, and she keeps postponing our follow-up appointment. I watched Kenneth's face carefully as he glanced at me. Doctor, I think Tracy is afraid of further disappointment. These experimental treatments have given us false hope before. I understand, but these results are... well, they're quite significant. Could you please put her on the phone? Kenneth handed me the receiver, his expression carefully neutral. But I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his jaw clenched as he attempted to appear supportive while clearly hoping for bad news. Hello, Dr. Martinez, I said, injecting just the right amount of weary resignation into my voice. Tracy, I've been trying to reach you for weeks. We need to discuss your test results immediately. Can you come in today? Is it bad news? I asked, loud enough for Kenneth to hear clearly. Tracy, I can't discuss details over the phone, but I need you to understand. This is urgent. Can your husband bring you in this afternoon? I glanced at Kenneth, who was now leaning against the counter, obviously listening to every word. I suppose. So, I said reluctantly. But doctor, please just tell me. Is there any hope at all? There was a pause, and I could almost hear Dr. Martinez carefully choosing his words. Tracy, there have been some unexpected developments. We truly need to discuss this in person. After I hung up, Kenneth immediately moved to my side, his hand on my shoulder in a gesture that might have seemed comforting to an observer, but felt entirely calculating to me. What did he say? Kenneth asked. He wouldn't tell me anything over the phone. He just kept saying it was urgent. I let my voice waver. Kenneth, I'm scared. What if the experimental treatment made things worse somehow? Hey, he said, pulling me into his arms. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together. I'll drive you to the appointment. I nodded against his chest, playing the part of the frightened, dependent wife, while my mind raced, anticipating what was about to unfold. This was the moment I had planned for, the perfect opportunity to reveal the truth in the most devastating way imaginable. Should I call Serena to watch Kimberly? I asked innocently. She's already here, Kenneth said quickly. She came early today to help with the housework. Of course she had. I had heard her car in the driveway an hour ago, watched through the window as she let herself in with her own key, a key I had never authorized her to possess. 3 hours later, we sat in Dr. Martinez's office, Kenneth holding my hand in what appeared to be a gesture of support. The doctor looked confused as he glanced between us. Tracy, I have to ask, have you experienced any changes in your vision since the surgery? Any improvement at all? I felt Kenneth's hand tighten on mine. No, I said softly, nothing. It's been the same darkness as always. Dr. Martinez frowned, pulling up my file on his computer. That's very strange, Tracy. The surgery was completely successful. Your optic nerves have healed perfectly. According to every test we've run, you should have full vision. The silence in the room was deafening. I could feel Kenneth's shock radiating from him. I don't understand, I whispered, maintaining my performance even as my heart pounded with anticipation. Tracy, Dr. Martinez said gently, I need you to look at me, truly look. Can you see my face at all? This was it, the moment of truth. I slowly raised my head and looked directly into Dr. Martinez's eyes, letting recognition spread across my features. I can see you, I whispered, my voice filled with wonder. Oh my God, I can see you! Kenneth's hand dropped from mine as if I'd burned him. I turned to look at him, watching the color drain from his face. Kenneth, I said, my voice growing stronger, I can see you. I can see everything. When? He managed to croak. When did this happen? I smiled, and for the first time in weeks it was completely genuine. 3 weeks ago. The day Dr. Martinez drove me home from the hospital. The implications hit him hard. I watched as he mentally calculated exactly what that meant, what I might have seen, what I might know. 3 weeks, he repeated numbly. Yes, I said, standing up from my chair and looking down at him. 3 weeks of perfect vision. 3 weeks of seeing everything clearly for the first time in years. Dr. Martinez was beaming, oblivious to the tense undercurrents in the room. This is incredible. Tracy, why didn't you tell anyone? Oh, I think my family is going to be very surprised, I said, my eyes never leaving Kenneth's face. I've learned so much in these past 3 weeks. About trust, about loyalty, about the people we choose to let into our lives. Kenneth's face had gone from white to ashen gray. He knew, without me saying another word.
He knew his world was about to crumble. Tracy, he started, but I held up my hand.
Dr. Martinez, thank you for everything. You've given me the most precious gift imaginable, the ability to see the truth. Clearly, as we left the doctor's office, Kenneth walked beside me in stunned silence. I could practically hear his mind racing, trying to figure out how much I knew, how much damage had been done. Tracy, he finally said as we reached the car. We need to talk. Yes, I agreed, getting into the passenger seat and looking directly at him. We certainly do. But first, I think we should go home. I'm eager to see Serena's reaction to the good news. Kenneth's hands shook as he started the car. For 3 weeks, he had been living in a fool's paradise, believing he was in control of the situation. Now, he was beginning to understand that he had been the one controlled all along. As we drove home, I thought about Serena, waiting in my house, likely, planning her next move in the elaborate game she believed she was winning. She had no idea the game was already over, and she was about to discover just how badly she had lost. The house was quiet when we pulled into the driveway, too quiet. Kenneth's hands still trembled as he turned off the engine, and I could see sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool afternoon air. Tracy, he began again, but I was already getting out of the car. Let's go inside, Kenneth. I'm sure Serena is anxious to hear the news. I walked up to my front door with confident steps, no longer feeling along the walls or pausing at the threshold. Behind me, I could hear Kenneth's strained breathing as he struggled to keep up. I opened the door and called out cheerfully, Serena, we're home. I have wonderful news. She appeared at the top of the stairs, and I had the satisfaction of watching her face change as she saw me looking directly at her. The smile she'd been preparing froze on her lips. Tracy, she said uncertainly, is everything okay? Everything is perfect, I said, climbing the stairs with confident steps. Better than perfect, actually. Dr. Martinez had the most amazing news. Serena backed away as I reached the top of the stairs, her eyes darting between me and Kenneth, who was following behind like a man walking to his execution. What kind of news? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I can see, Serena, I said simply. The surgery worked. I've been able to see for 3 weeks now. The blood drained from her face so quickly I thought she might faint. 3 weeks. Yes, 3 wonderful, enlightening weeks. I walked past her toward the master bedroom, the same room where I had first discovered their betrayal. I've seen so many interesting things. Serena followed me, her movements jerky and panicked. Tracy, I don't understand, don't you? I turned to face her, and she flinched at the cold fury in my eyes. Let me help you understand. 3 weeks ago I came home from the hospital, excited to share the miracle of my restored sight with my loving husband. Imagine my surprise when I found him in our bed with our daughter's nanny. The silence that followed was broken only by Kenneth's sharp intake of breath from the doorway. Tracy, Serena started, but I held up my hand. I'm not finished. You. See, I made a very interesting decision that day. Instead of confronting you both immediately, I decided to watch, to learn, to see just how deep this betrayal went. I walked to Kenneth's dresser and opened the top drawer, pulling out a manila folder Rachel had helped me prepare. And what I learned was fascinating. This isn't just an affair, is it, Serena? This is your profession. I opened the folder and pulled out the first document, a photograph of Serena with another man and 2 children who weren't Kimberly. The Patterson family in Portland, ring any bells? You destroyed their family too, didn't you? Convinced the husband to leave his disabled wife, helped him gain custody of the children, then vanished with a substantial portion of his assets. Serena's face had gone completely white. How did you How did I find out? I may have been blind, Serena, but I was never stupid. Unlike my husband, who apparently thinks he's your partner in this scheme instead of your next victim. I turned to Kenneth, who stood in the doorway looking like he'd been hit by a truck. Did you really think she loved you, Kenneth? Did you? Think this was some grand romance? You're not her lover. You're her mark. She's been planning to take you for everything you're worth and vanish, just like she did to Mr. Patterson. That's not true, Kenneth said weakly. But I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes, isn't it? I pulled out another document, bank records showing the $30,000. You've been secretly moving into a separate account. Money you thought you were hiding from me, but that Serena has full access to. Tell me, Kenneth, whose idea was it to open that account? The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. And then there's this. I continued pulling out printed emails, communications between Serena and her brother, Stephen, about the Maximus job and the timeline for completion. You're not building a new life together, Kenneth. You're being systematically robbed. Serena finally found her voice. Tracy, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. I cut her off. You target vulnerable families, gain their trust, then destroy them from the inside. You're a predator, Serena, and you made one crucial mistake. What mistake? She whispered. I smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. You underestimated me. You thought my blindness made me helpless, made me less than human. You thought I would never fight back. I walked to the window and gestured outside, where 2 police cars were pulling into the driveway. You were wrong. The color that had returned to Serena's face drained away again. What did you do? I did what any mother would do when someone threatened her family. I protected my child. I turned back to face them both. Serena Francisco, you're about to be arrested for fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. The evidence my sister and I have gathered over the past 3 weeks is quite comprehensive. Your sister, Kenneth croaked. Rachel, you remember Rachel, don't you, Kenneth? The private investigator. She's been very helpful in documenting your affair, your financial crimes, and your plan to have me committed so you could steal my daughter. The sound of footsteps on the stairs announced the arrival of the police. Detective Maximus, no relation, despite the name, appeared in the doorway with 2 uniformed officers. Mrs. Maximus, we're here to execute the warrants. I nodded. Serena Francisco and Kenneth Maximus, you're both under arrest. As the officers moved to handcuff them, Serena finally broke down. Tracy, please, she sobbed. I never meant for it to go this far. I was going to stop. When? I asked coldly. Before or after you had me committed? Before or after you stole my daughter? Before or after you destroyed what was left of my family? She had no answer. Kenneth, meanwhile, seemed to be in shock. As the officer read him his rights, he kept staring at me as if seeing me for the very first time. Tracy, he said as they led him toward the door. I loved you. I really did love you. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. No, Kenneth. You loved the idea of being a martyr married to a disabled wife. You loved the sympathy it gained you, the way people praised your devotion, but you never loved me. If you had, my blindness wouldn't have mattered. As they were led away, I heard a car door slam outside. Kimberly was home from school, and I could hear her voice asking our neighbor what was happening. I took a deep breath and went downstairs to meet my daughter. She stood on the front porch, backpack still on, watching the police cars with wide, frightened eyes. Mommy, she said when she saw me. What's happening? Where are Daddy and Serena going? I knelt down in front of her, looking directly into her eyes, something I hadn't been able to do in 3 years. Kimberly, I said gently, Mommy has something very important to tell you. Something wonderful and something sad. What, Mommy? The wonderful thing is that I can see you again. The doctors fixed my eyes and I can see your beautiful face. Her eyes widened with joy and confusion. You can see me? Yes, sweetheart, I can see you perfectly. But what's the sad thing? I took her small hands in mine. The sad thing is that Daddy and Serena made some very bad choices and they have to go away for a while. Are they coming back? I looked into my daughter's innocent face and made her a promise. I don't know, baby, but I promise you this. No matter what happens, you and I are going to be just fine. Better than fine. We're going to be happy. And for the first time in 3 years, I truly believed it. The courtroom was packed as the judge Read the final verdict. Kenneth received 5 years for fraud and conspiracy, while Serena got 7 years for her role as the mastermind of what the prosecutor called a systematic pattern of predatory behavior targeting vulnerable families. I sat in the front row, holding Kimberly's hand, watching as the two people who had tried to destroy our lives were led away in handcuffs. Kimberly didn't fully grasp everything that had happened, but she knew that the people who had lied to us were being punished for their deceit. The custody hearing had been swift and decisive. Despite Kenneth's lawyer's attempts to argue that my previous blindness made me an unfit mother, the judge was not swayed. The evidence of Kenneth's conspiracy to have me committed, combined with testimony about my actual capabilities, made the decision simple. Mrs. Maximus, the family court judge had said, your disability, former or otherwise, has no bearing on your fitness as a parent. Your actions in protecting your daughter from a dangerous situation demonstrate exactly the kind of judgment and courage we want to see in a parent. Kimberly and I moved to a smaller house across town, closer to Rachel and her family. The insurance, money from Kenneth's fraudulent activities, combined with the settlement from Serena's previous victims who had joined our class action lawsuit, provided us with financial security. But more importantly, we had each other. Mommy, Kimberly said, one evening as I tucked her into bed in our new house. I'm glad you can see me now. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. I love you, Mommy. I love you too, Kimberly, more than you'll ever know. As I turned off her light and closed her door, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. 3 years of darkness had taught me to rely on senses beyond sight, to listen more carefully, to trust my instincts, to value the people who truly cared about me. When my sight returned, it brought with it a clarity that extended far beyond the physical. I could see not just with my eyes, but with a wisdom born from surviving betrayal and emerging stronger. Kenneth and Serena had thought my blindness made me weak, made me less than whole. They had used my vulnerability as a weapon against me, never imagining I might transform that same vulnerability into strength. They had underestimated the power of a mother's love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the simple truth: sometimes the people who seem the most helpless are actually the most dangerous. I walked to my bedroom window and looked out at the garden where Kimberly and I had planted flowers together, something I could never have done while blind, but something I treasured now with the profound appreciation of someone who had lost and regained the ability to see beauty in the world. Tomorrow, Kimberly and I would visit the animal shelter to pick out a puppy, something she had been asking for since the trial ended. We would build new traditions, create new memories, and move forward into a future that was entirely our own. The darkness was behind us now, and the light, the beautiful, precious light, stretched out ahead of us like a promise of all the good things yet to come. I had regained more than my sight. I had regained my life, my strength, and my faith in my own ability to protect the people I loved.